Hey everybody, I hope that you're all doing well. What I was seeing in the pre-shuffle was temperance and death, so this can indicate being in a little bit of a recovery, I'm hearing for some of you. There can also be a bit of a transition right now. It can be physically, it can be mentally, there can be just something that's going on where you can be like moving from one thing to the next thing. We are starting off with the sun. I'm seeing sun, I'm seeing Seven of Swords, and I'm seeing the world. So this feels like something that you've been going through, that you can be in a place of better understanding with yourself. Maybe you've become aware of something that you weren't totally aware of before. That can be the case here with this. There can be something that you learned that just like didn't click before. When we have Seven of Swords, it can be the stuff that we don't realize because we're not taking that closer look, or because we're not like thinking about it too hard. So having the Sun and the Seven of Swords, you can realize, oh, like because I wasn't really going there with myself, it was keeping me from understanding this. And what that can do to us is that it can keep us repeating these cycles, which we're not like totally aware of what's going on with, and that we kind of find ourselves in the same situation over and over again. And it's like, how did I end up back here again? So with this Sun and the Seven of Swords in the world, I feel like you've learned something here. So you're not just gonna magically end up back within a cycle again. So yeah, this actually, it feels like quite an important thing that has been understood here. So we start with the sun, we're ending so far with the moon. So this can be like something about your unconscious energy that has been illuminated. So now you are aware of that. Also, seeing the world and seeing the moon, you may be getting closer to stepping into a chapter where there can be some unknown stuff that you are figuring out, because the moon can be entering into something that's quite unexplored for us, and having the world be before that. So the world is going to be something, we have just accomplished something and we are now just beginning something, and then having the moon be the thing that comes out after. This can be like, I'm working with myself spiritually, I'm working with myself energetically, I'm working with myself psychologically. What this can also mean too is that you can be entering into some type of phase or into some type of chapter where you're going to be exploring something that you may not have all of the information about that yet. I'm seeing Three of Swords, I'm seeing Nine of Wands. All right. Seeing something like this feels like when you realize things having to do with pain, having to do with triggers, what this can open up for you in exploring it more deeply. When we have Three of Swords and we have Seven of Swords, this can be about stuff that's connected with abandonment. This can be stuff that's connected with betrayal. This can be stuff that I feel like comes down to, I mean, I guess there are lots of different ways that we can experience it. With Three of Swords and Seven of Swords, we can like want to get out from having to deal with things that feel painful and like not want to face them. But with what I'm seeing here, there can be more of a push in the direction of, let me be present to these things because I want to see what's going on. Having Sun above Three of Swords, there may be something very, very important here that you have realized about a wound that you have. This can be about a trigger that you have. Now, when something like this happens, we kind of are left with one of two choices. One is that we can allow this and we can explore it further and just like even be open to it, like even recognizing that, like, yeah, that does bring up something for me, or like I do feel pain when like that's going on, or I think about that. You have that option there where it just feels like an acceptance of what that is, rather than pushing it down or hiding it away. And then that's your second option, is with Seven of Swords, can be about getting away from having to see that. let me try to find a way to sweep it under the rug somehow. Let me avoid this in some way. And so something can be going on where like it's not the easiest thing to be present to, but at the same time, like you have the option here, because this feels like Seven of Swords and Nine of Wands feels like it's your willpower at the end of the day. Is this something that you're going to look at and say, yep, this is just, it's part of my path, it's part of my mission, this is here, like I'm here to be recognizing these things and accepting these things rather than pushing them away? Or is this something that I'm going to try to get away from having to be there with? Because sometimes it feels painful to face those things. So it makes sense why the ego would want to run away from that. So having Seven of Swords and Nine of Wands is like, are you up for this challenge here? Are you willing to face this thing that feels difficult? Are you willing to work through it so that this can be healed? Or is this something where you want to avoid having to go through this and can maybe like put it off for a little while longer? Having the World and having the King of Cups feels like a lesson under your belt when it has to do with things connected with the water. So it has to do with things connected with feeling, it can be emotion, it can be emotional honesty. And because we also have the moon here, which is connected with Pisces, Pisces is connected with the unseen worlds, but felt. And so it's all about those things that you're feeling, and it's really up to you whether this is something you acknowledge or not. And so coming back to this place of truth with yourself, of deciding to bring that awareness there to that, even though it can feel difficult to do it initially, recognizing that that's the only way things can get better. So it's the path to healing. I'm not saying that you're like happy moving through this, because I'm seeing the Four of Cups here. Like there can be a part of you that's not having a great time moving through this, but at the same time, I feel like there's an active choice that's being made to end something that needs to end, just because of recognizing like where you are within that cycle, and maybe not wanting to actively upkeep something like this at this point. Even though it is an option for you to do that, but you can be in a space where you're like, I don't want to. So I'm seeing the Sun, I'm seeing Pisces, I'm also seeing Saturn here, and I'm seeing Mars. Something else that can be going on here too is that you can be like realizing stuff about yourself, about the way that you feel. I'm talking about feeling because we have King of Cups and we have the Moon here. I'm getting confirmation of this. You can be seeing where you had maybe been avoiding certain things that you'd been feeling, or maybe not validating that was something that was really going on for you. Because with the Sun, this is about the stuff that we look at and then we become aware of that. And this can be things having to do with ourselves. With the Sun and the Three of Swords, these are like wounds to our Sun energy, wounds to our core, wounds to like what we can perceive to be. It's like your ego, your soul, your personality, whatever it is that you consider to be connected with the Sun. Even though like there are deeper parts of us that are untouched by this, sure. But from the standpoint of where things can change and be worked and reworked and fall apart and come together, there can be something that you are realizing that's connected with your core here, like a core wound even with the Sun and the Three of Swords. And as much as it can feel painful to look at that, because if it's still something that we haven't integrated, we at some point in time when it happened felt like it was too much for us, and then we just sort of like swept it under the rug, but the bump is still there. Like that stuff is still there under the rug, like it has not been integrated. So what you can be seeing is maybe where you hadn't been fully present to something, and this can be something that's connected with your sense of self in some way. And because we have the Moon and because we have King of Cups, maybe it's about something that you feel. And maybe something with Seven of Swords and Nine of Wands, maybe something that you weren't being honest with yourself about. maybe something that you were looking away from, maybe something that you didn't want to admit to. So having the World and having the King of Cups does feel like something about this being understood, something about this being learned, but I do still feel with Seven of Swords and Nine of Wands, like you could still like carry on and like, I mean, with Seven of Swords, it's like you could lie to yourself or you can be lying to someone around you. There can be something like this going on. It's any way where we can like try to avoid what's going on and like having to deal with it and ultimately having to face it. So there's something here to be faced. Seven of Swords and Nine of Wands can be the potential of choice. Am I going to face this, or am I going to try to get away without having to face this, which is really just going to be putting it off, because there's nowhere really to go to escape anyway, but we can sometimes put things off for a little bit. Having the World and having King of Cups can be like maybe a really big realization that's connected with you dealing with this and how you're better off for it, rather than trying to push it away or not be present to it. Because if we, with Three of Swords and Seven of Swords, we add it together, it equals the Ten of Swords. So it means like something finally closes out if we allow for that to happen. And we feel like we've understood something very majorly about ourselves moving through this process, about what we want, about where we're ready to go. And you can say too, I'm expanding my horizons when it comes to my relationship with myself, especially in these are key pieces that are connected with your relationship with yourself on a spiritual level, because we have Pisces here. And it's also connected with your healing journey as well, about things being dissolved, that it's time for those things to be dissolved, but only when we come face to face with them can that happen. It's like something has to be recognized and then it can fall away. But if we're running around and not recognizing it, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just there, kind of like haunting us a little bit. So this is like with love, allowing this to be something that's integrated. And this can be like a part of yourself now that is being integrated. It can be a part of what was priorly known as your shadow that is not so much your shadow anymore. Having Four of Cups, this can be going through a process that like maybe it feels draining, maybe it feels tiring, maybe there's a part of you that like wants something more exciting to be coming along here. Four of Cups can also be just like not the most, like this can be difficult stuff that we move through. So it doesn't always feel like the most like gratifying experience short term. Long term it will, but short term it doesn't always. And seeing the Tower on the bottom of the deck, this can be a time that feels a little bit destabilizing, but it's helping things become more solid for you, more firm for you, and more stable for you at the end of the day. And I also feel too, like in the acknowledgement of this, it allows you to understand better where it is that you're going in a way that was not clarified before. And that's another reason why this is important. Like something feels like it's not so much of a mystery anymore when it comes to where things are heading now. With the Sun and the Nine of Wands, I see this as coming down to, are you going to live it? Are you going to express it? Are you going to show up for it? What are you going to do? Because the Sun is about yourself. It's about your core, and it is about your self-expression. You expressing your soul like as truly as you can be. Having Nine of Wands can be the things that get in the way of us doing that. So it can be like, this is really me, and like I want to come out with this, or like I want to like put myself out there in this type of way. But then the Three of Swords can be the things that have us dimming our light, or the things that have us like just adjacent to our authenticity. Seven of Swords and Nine of Wands can be where we are realizing that we do that, and in that moment of realizing, again, it brings you to a place of choice. Now that I'm aware of this, am I going to say, like, no, this is just too much for me to face? Or am I going to accept the mission here of doing this And even though I'm going to have to face something, which in facing it, it allows you to heal this Three of Swords. Am I going to do that? Am I going to step up here? Or is this something that I just feel like this is too big, it's too much of a challenge, and I'm not up for it, and I can just play it that way for myself. And there's no judgment about that. I'm not telling you should do one thing or the other. We're just talking about the options that you have here, and knowing that if you do move with the Seven of Swords here, like if you do sort of keep this under wraps, it is something that you can feel like follows you around until you acknowledge it. There's no outrunning this. The only way that this is something that actually becomes integrated is if we are facing it and expressing it. And that can even just acknowledging that, like regardless of what you end up doing, even learning that is making progress, okay? Seeing Four of Cups, this may be something that you don't want to do. And why wouldn't you want to do this? I mean, because there can be something that you have to face in order to do this that you may not want to, because these things are difficult to do because of the wounding and how the wounding reinforces the wounding. At the same time, it comes to a choice of like, are you going to empower your energy here and do this, or are you not? And that is the choice that you have here with all of this. All right, my friends, we are going to leave the reading here. I would like to thank everyone for connecting. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sending everybody love, and I hope to catch you guys next time.